in the command chamber of the Confederation's orbiting dreadnought Celestial Authority, High Strategist Threxon's translucent wings vibrated with a frequency usually reserved for panic or violent amusement. Holographic data flickered and warped around his mandibles as he turned to face the officer responsible. "You did what, Commander Ralvox?" Ralvox, proud and oblivious, saluted with rigid mandible clacks. "We eliminated the unauthorized human outposts in the Helix Reach Strategist, a swift and decisive show of strength against their territorial overreach." Threxon's multifaceted eyes shifted through several spectrum modes, finally settling on the ultraviolet flicker pattern for "you absolute idiot." "Did you," he asked slowly, "at any point during your brilliantly efficient purge, consult the first engagement protocol index?" Ralvox blinked. "The humans are barely 3 centuries into FTL expansion. Their energy matrices are crude. Their military doctrine is based on something called Space Marines, and we're fairly certain those aren't even real." "Oh, they're real?" Threxon muttered. "In fact, they've probably just finished installing jetpacks on goats because someone said they couldn't." He waved a claw. "Computer, display Terran Historical Archive. Keywords, unprovoked civilian attacks, cross-reference cultural response patterns. Start with Earth year 1941, Pacific Theater." The central display flared to life. Ralvox's antennae twitched as ancient Terran footage played. Smoking naval wreckage, retaliatory declarations, a mobilized species flipping every metaphorical switch from chill to apocalyptic. The display shifted again, now showing real-time data. A map of Confederation-controlled space slowly began to fill with red markers. "Incoming. Fast. Those aren't all warships, are they?" Ralvox asked, his voice a little thinner. "They are now," Threxon said grimly. "You just woke the Terran War engine." Across space, they stirred. The United Terran Vanguard, affectionately nicknamed the Dragons by their own officers, had already deployed. Massive ships exited subspace with all the grace of angry celestial bodies. The lead vessel dwarfed anything the Confederation had ever fielded. The hull bore one name: UTV Yorkhammer, Planet Reformatting Class. The display chirped. "Incoming transmission," the comms officer announced. "Put it through," Threxon sighed. "Let's meet our new reality." The hologram stabilized. A human in navy blue uniform stood before them, calm, smiling. "I'm Grand Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Terran Defense Force," she said, voice cordial but clipped. "We noticed your attack. We'd now like to discuss the terms of your unconditional surrender." Ralvox's mandibles flapped uselessly. "As surrender? But we're the superior force. We outnumber." "Past tense," Chin interrupted. "Those research colonies you erased, they weren't just astrophysicists and xenobotanists. They were specialists in you. And thanks to your minimal effort attack, we've reverse-engineered most of your defense tech." It was cute. The display zoomed out and out and out. Vast formations of Terran ships filled the screen. "Impressive, isn't it?" Chun continued with a pleasant smile. "That's what humans can do when someone interrupts our coffee breaks." "Teach, this violates your own peace statutes," Ralvox stammered. "Oh, you mean Article 7, Section 3? She replied sweetly. "The one about proportional retaliation? See, we've designated your shipyards, military academies, and orbital brunch stations as strategic equivalents." Another ping. "They've entered Confederation space," said the tactical officer. "And they've adapted their shields to counter ours. Perfectly. And Captain Ralvox." Chen's gaze sharpened. "Next time you think of attacking research scientists, remember this moment. The moment you met the Dragons." The screen went dark. Threxon stared in silence, then gestured vaguely at the ceiling. "Computer," he said, "run probability assessment for successful resistance." A single line appeared. 0.1%. The computer added helpfully. This margin includes spontaneous human fleet implosion due to laughter or distraction by memes. Ralvox slumped into a gravity cradle, twitching. I think we should surrender. Excellent deduction, Threxon said with a flutter of exhausted sarcasm. Send the humans our unconditional surrender. Also ask if they'll accept peace offerings in the form of extremely polite distance and absolutely no further contact. And add, he sighed, a footnote to our first contact handbook under Why You Don't Wake Sleeping Dragons. The Confederation's surrender was confirmed 12 minutes later. A single message blinked on their main channel from Admiral Chen's flagship. Wise choice. Don't worry. We brought coffee. The Confederation Command Complex was silent, save for the faint background hum of cooling vents and one nervous mandible twitching against a teacup. Is it supposed to make my antennae vibrate like this? Commander Ralvox asked, voice pitching higher with every sip. Lieutenant Santos, human, caffeinated, and cheerfully devastating, nodded with a bright grin. That's how you know it's working. Across the table, High Strategist Threxon's wings fluttered in what had recently been classified as the caffeine-induced enlightenment pattern. He stared into the swirling depths of his fifth cup of earth coffee. Fascinating, he murmured. This beverage alone explains at least 12% of your species' violent adaptability. Thanks, Santos beamed. You should see what happens when we introduce espresso. Or worse, seasonal flavors. The room's hollow display flickered to life with the daily occupation progress report. In just 48 Terran hours, the United Terran Vanguard had secured every major Confederation installation. Not with weaponry, not with fire, with organization. Terran logistics ships had outscheduled, outplanned, and outmeeting the Confederation's best minds. Even worse, they had politely requested permission before optimizing each system. They call it aggressive competence, Santos explained, sipping her coffee through a titanium straw. We find it disarms resistance better than plasma cannons. Ralvox looked like he might cry. But how? He finally croaked. Our technology was superior. You said, so yourselves. We ran simulations. We had numbers. Santos grinned like a sun about to rise on a very bad day. Would you believe me if I told you it was mostly spite? The aliens blinked in unison. Human engineering operates on 3 core principles, she continued, pulling up a presentation titled Hold My Coffee. How to Outtech a Galactic Empire. She counted on her fingers. 1. Necessity is the mother of invention. 2. Hold my beer and watch this. 3. Oh, you think we can't? Bet. The hologram shifted to show footage from the first retaliatory strike. Confederation ships launched a barrage of cutting-edge plasma weaponry. The Terrans responded with a sudden shift in shield harmonics, custom-designed overnight by a teenage engineer who really hated being interrupted during game night. Who designed that shield protocol? Threxon asked, horrified. A 17-year-old intern named Riley. They cracked your encryption using something called spite-fueled focus. Also caffeine. Ralvox groaned. Santos continued the presentation. The research outposts you blew up, mostly filled with ex-NASA tinkerers and hobbyist physicists. We didn't need an official war council. We just let Reddit loose. Threxon's eyes narrowed. What's a Reddit? Santos winced. A mistake you'll only make once. She clicked again. The screen now showed the planet reformatting class ship UTV Yorkhammer. I know what you're thinking, she said cheerfully. Overkill. Excessive. Probably a Geneva Convention violation. Ralvox nodded enthusiastically. Wrong. We built it to comply with the Geneva Conventions. It technically destroys nothing directly. How? It just destabilizes gravitational wells until the planet falls apart on its own. And you consider that compliant. Legal doesn't always mean gentle. Vox, do you know how we built those ships? Santos asked, leaning in conspiratorially. We held a competition. The prize was naming rights and free ice cream for a year. You mean your species crowdsourced a doomsday device? Technically a deterrent. We're very into community involvement. The aliens stared in stunned horror as another screen updated with the phrase, community-sourced catastrophe engineering. Let me put it in simpler terms. Santos said, you thought we were primitive. You mistook self-restraint for incompetence. That was your first mistake. Threxon sighed. And the second, you made us angry and curious. That was your last. Behind her, a new screen activated. The first draft of the Galactic Coexistence Integration Plan. Item 1, Coffee Diplomacy. Item 2, Mandatory Engineering Hackathons. Item 3, Scheduled Cultural Contagion through Snacks. Vox fainted. Threxon nodded solemnly. I see now, he said, sipping his sixth cup. The dragons were never sleeping. They were just overcaffeinated and distracted. Exactly, Santos said. Now would you like to try something stronger? It's called pumpkin spice. The Confederation Council Chamber had once been a sacred place of strategic brilliance, solemn debate, and impeccably polished floor tiles. Now, it smelled faintly of espresso. Commander Vox stood before the emergency assembly, his carapace trembling as he played the surveillance footage again. The room fell silent as the hologram displayed the Terran fleet's formation, a maneuver so perfectly synchronized that even the computers gave up trying to simulate counters. And then, Vox continued with a brittle voice, they sent muffins. The hologram zoomed in. Dozens of small Earth cargo drones descended onto Confederation diplomatic stations. Their payload? Fresh-baked muffins, individually wrapped, with good morning, notes handwritten in multiple languages. They're psychologically destabilizing us through pastries, whispered Chancellor Ketzer, the crystalline ambassador. We don't even eat food. You do now, High Strategist Threxon muttered. Threxon stood up, wings shimmering with frustration. Let's be clear. This isn't war. This is something worse. It's human spite plus hospitality. Vox winced. I thought we had the upper claw. I really did. You poked the Terrans, Threxon said, slowly. You poked them in the research colonies, the part of their species that carries grudges, patents, and a disturbingly large number of spiteful hobbyists with engineering degrees. He turned to the main console. Computer, display Terran military designation, planet reformatting class vessel. A rotating 3D schematic filled the room. The hull read, UTV Yorkhammer. Subtext, please surrender before we get creative. They didn't design this to intimidate, Threxon explained. They designed it to technically comply with every galactic warfare regulation while still scaring every known species into reconsidering breakfast. What is the primary weapon? Asked a reptilian general. Santos' face appeared via holocall. Oh, it's the FLUFF drive, she chirped. Fully legal, unified fusion facilitator. It doesn't fire at a planet. It just gently destabilizes its gravity until the crust surrenders. Soft conquest. Soft conquest. Vox echoed. Like sinking into a beanbag chair, Santos said with a grin. Only the chair is your homeworld. In the corner, an analyst ran the numbers. It's not just their weapons, she said. It's their cultural saturation strategy. They've been feeding our soldiers Earth media. Casual Fridays are trending in 6 outposts. There's karaoke on the command deck of the Fracture Claw. A new alert pinged. Alert, Confederation Marines requested PTO. Reason, boin out. Threxon slapped his wings over his face. They've infected our bureaucracy. Meanwhile, across space, the UTV Yorkhammer received a status update. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge, sipping a triple-shot espresso. "Commander," the Confederation Council just requested a meeting and a muffin recipe. "Progress," she muttered. "Let's keep the pressure friendly. Deploy coffee drones to their capital orbit. Add blankets. No sudden movements." The helmsman blinked. "Ma'am, are we being nice?" "Of course," Chin said, her voice softening. "Humans are always nice, until you poke the dragons." She turned back to the stars. "Then we bake cookies and build warships the size of cities, just to prove we can." The Confederation's orbital strategy dome was a miracle of design: transparent crystalline panels, gravity-neutral seating, and an artificial intelligence tuned to 6 languages and 5 emotional registers. It was also currently hosting a nervous breakdown. High strategist Threxen stood at the center podium, wings trembling in rhythmic pulses of bureaucratic horror. The projection behind him displayed the silhouette of a Terran ship, so massive that even the scale hologram had to scroll sideways twice. "It's not just the size," Threxen muttered. "It's the compliance." The room of diplomats and military minds stared, slack-jawed, at the specs of the UTV Yorkhammer, a planet reformatting class vessel, one of several in the Terran fleet. A secondary screen listed footnotes longer than the hull itself. Weapon classification, technically not a superweapon. Energy signature, perfectly legal under Article 4, Section 12. Intent, demonstrative deterrence with optional city stacking capabilities. Public name, Muffin-class deterrent carrier. "They're legally permitted to destroy a planet," Ralvox whimpered, "so long as they first file for zoning permission." Lieutenant Santos, beaming, as always, tapped through a slide deck labeled Planet Killers and paperwork, a peacekeeping primer. "You'll notice," she said cheerfully, "we've optimized every process. Destruction and diplomacy, all wrapped in red tape." An ambassador from the crystalline Ixari stood up. "You mean to tell me your warships are also government filing centers?" "Oh, yes," Santos replied. "We once passed an interstellar trade agreement mid-battle while launching drones. Each drone delivered a treaty copy and biscotti." Threxen clutched his translator node. "You serve biscotti during negotiations?" "We find snacks reduce resistance." Ralvox waved a trembling limb at the current slide. "Why does it say Coffee Shop Section B17? "Oh, that's the peace deck," Santos said brightly. "Fully furnished. Cappuccino grade. We find that occupying a space is easier when you smell like cinnamon and baked joy. The shields are calibrated to allow pastry drones through," she added, almost as an afterthought. Threxen slumped forward on the dais. Footage from Terran strategy briefings rolled across the screen. Humans in business casual armor outlined deployment plans beside buffet tables. One strategist drew tactical maneuvers using jelly beans. "And this is how you overtook our entire inner ring in under 48 hours. Threxen rasped. Santos gave a sheepish shrug. Some of it was logistics. Most of it was stubborn engineers and baristas with clearance codes. Another ping. Confederation facility at Varney's. 12 reports full surrender, and 8 announced. "Let me guess," Threxen groaned. "No battle. Just baked goods." "No, sir. Muffins and cookies. And a karaoke invitation." A third ping. "Outer Sector Command has defected. They cited casual Fridays and ergonomic chairs." Ralvox collapsed into his chair. "We trained for kinetic warfare, not comfortable workspaces." Santos nodded sympathetically. "Don't worry. We brought onboarding kits. You'll adapt." She passed a datapad to Threxen. On it, the header read, "United Terran Integration Plan, subsection 3B, introducing caffeine as a peace strategy." May I suggest you begin training with espresso first? She said gently. We wouldn't want your wings to tear from the adrenaline. Threxon looked at the datapad, then at the towering shape of the Yorkhammer still orbiting in patient menace. He sighed. So, this is how the galaxy ends. No, Santos smiled. Not with a bang, but with a scone. High strategist Threxon had survived planetary sieges, dimensional incursions, and once a surprise poetry duel with the Corthian elite. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for Ice Cream Day. Across the central plaza of the former Confederation Command Citadel, now rebranded by Terrans as the Galactic Harmony Hub, hundreds of aliens milled about with colorful bowls of frozen dairy. A giant inflatable sign floated overhead. Peace tastes like Rocky Road. Beneath it, Admiral Sarah Chun, clad in full diplomatic regalia and a cheerful apron reading "Treats, Not Threats," handed out triple scoops to crystalline ambassadors. You should really try this one, she was saying to a vibrating blob of sentient mist. It's called Existential Crunch. There's caramel, quantum sprinkles, and a flavor note of regret. Threxon sipped his lukewarm espresso, utterly defeated. Commander Ralvox stumbled into his seat beside him, clutching a cone of pale green swirl. They gave me something called Mint Apocalypse, he whispered. I can taste colors. They've weaponized dairy, Threxon murmured. We were fools to ever believe them primitive. Around them, alien dignitaries from every corner of the Confederation licked, slurped, and wept gently into napkins. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, humanity's lead cultural attaché, took the stage as soothing lo-fi music pulsed from ceiling panels. Today, we celebrate peace, partnership, and pistachio, she began with perfect sincerity. The road here wasn't paved in battle. It was paved in baked goods, memes, and mutually assured emotional vulnerability. The room applauded, albeit cautiously. Rodriguez nodded toward a new holoscreen labeled, The Humanity Effect, Why Diplomacy is Better with Dessert. Slide scrolled through. A warlord being hugged by Earth kindergartners. Planet reformatting class ships repurposed into orbital cafes. Strategic surrender agreements signed with gel pens shaped like ducks. You see, Rodriguez continued, humans don't just win wars. We win aftermaths. Your people expect conflict resolution, she added. Ours expect shared playlists and group therapy with snacks. In the back, one of the more militant Confederation admirals shouted, But what of your war doctrine? Right here. Rodriguez held up a laminated card. It read, De-escalate with empathy, overwhelm with hospitality, surprise with existential dessert. Outside the dome, a crowd gathered around the emotional recalibration pavilion, where humans invited aliens to scream into plush pillows, cry over Terran movies, and receive popsicles based on mood. Ketzer the crystalline stood near the emotional flavor bar, holding a sundae that shimmered in the sixth dimension. I came here to resist cultural assimilation, he muttered to no one. Now I collect enamel pins with positive affirmations. Back inside, Threxon watched as his entire civilization was peacefully, politely, completely rewritten. It's over, he said, licking cautiously at something called salted chaos ripple. Ralvox sighed. They didn't just conquer us. They comforted us into compliance. And in that moment, a single pastry drone drifted by. It dropped a fortune cookie into Threxon's hand. He opened it. Inside it read, Resistance is unnecessary. The vibe is inevitable. 3 solar cycles after Earth's polite conquest of the Confederation, the Galactic Unity Festival was underway inside the former Confederation War Ministry, now lovingly retrofitted into the United Friendship Dome of synergistic celebration. Music blared, lights danced, and aliens of every species and phase of matter participated in something humans called a flash mob. A glitter cannon detonated above the center atrium. Commander Ralvox, now in ceremonial robes and a sparkly sun hat, stood on a podium labeled Minister of Strategic Hugs. His mandibles clicked uncertainly. I used to launch orbital strikes. High Strategist Threxon, seated beside him, with a sash reading Grand Marshal of Cooperative Vibes, sipped from a drink with 12 straws and 12 colors. We were warriors, he muttered. Tacticians, artists of war. Ralvox nodded. And now we run the Cakewalk Pavilion. I haven't worn armor in months. Threxon said. I wear silk. It breathes. They both sighed. They both kept sipping. On the main stage, Admiral Sarah Chun adjusted a mic headset as she addressed the interstellar crowd. Welcome to day 4,217 of peace, she announced to cheers. Today's themes are radical empathy, tactical kindness, and mandatory karaoke. Cheers. Fireworks. A confetti burst shaped like a croissant. In the historical retrospective lounge, Rodriguez gave a keynote presentation titled, How to Win Without Fighting, a human story of snacks, strategy, and subtle subjugation. The Terrans, she explained, redefined conquest, not through dominance, but through invitation. Not by destroying systems, but by making everyone question whether those systems could be improved with mood lighting and personalized coffee service. Behind her, a hologram displayed images of Confederation warriors hosting paint and sip nights, acrylics general giving TED Talks about emotional intelligence, the UTV Yorkhammer being used to bake a planetary-scale cheesecake. Meanwhile, the festival exploded into full, transcendent chaos. In the Fusion Games arena, aliens played Capture the Hug, where tackling your opponent resulted in a snack-sharing ceremony. In the Snack Diplomacy Pavilion, species submitted new food inventions for judgment by a panel of enthusiastic 8-year-old Terrans. A crystalline being from the Zorian Ascendancy sobbed openly after receiving the gold ribbon for their quantum gelato. It's the validation I never got from my progenitor core. It wept joyously. Back near the main fountain, Threxon watched a Krork war monk try cotton candy for the first time. It dissolved in their clawed grip. They screamed. Then they demanded another. I used to command Starfleets, Threxon whispered. Ralvox handed him a corn dog. Now we command a carnival. Admiral Chin appeared beside them, holding a clipboard. By the way, she said, you're both scheduled to judge the interspecies dance battle at 1600. Theme, synchronized groove maneuvers. Threxon closed his eyes. I will never understand your species. Chin grinned. You don't need to. You just need to surrender to the vibe. That night, a new hologram lit up the dome sky. Congratulations! 97.8% of the galaxy now considers humanity their favorite chaos catalyst. Below, music swelled. Aliens danced under disco stars. And High Strategist Threxon, he joined them, wings fluttering to a beat that once might have made him resign in disgrace. Now, he just called it diplomatic cardio. The Galactic Council Chamber had never hosted a TED Talk before, certainly not one titled Ergonomics, Empires, and Enlightenment, How a Standing Desk Toppled Interstellar Hierarchies. Yet here they were, delegates from over 700 species, sitting in chairs re-engineered by Terran orthopedic designers, sipping lavender chai lattes as Dr. Elena Rodriguez clicked to the next slide. Behind her, the holoscreen displayed a timeline. 1 year ago, war. 6 months ago, occupation. Today, standing desk dance breaks. She turned to the audience, laser pointer in one hand, emotional support stress ball in the other. Let's talk about posture, she said. Meanwhile, in a nearby relaxation alcove, Commander Ralvox stood stiffly beside a massage chair labeled Tension Release Module, gifted to you by Earth. Threxon, eyes half-lidded, an antenna floating in bliss, lay cocooned in a heated blanket infused with something called aromatherapy vapor fields. I'm losing all sense of hierarchical structure, Ralvox muttered. Good, Threxen whispered. It was giving you back pain. Rodriguez's talk continued. You see, for Terrans, wellness is strategy. If your people feel good, they perform better. If they feel supported, they create solutions. Slide change. A side-by-side of two alien species, one at a standard metal desk, visibly crumpling under stress, the other lounging with ergonomic support, sipping fruit-infused water, and designing warp drives. They invented faster-than-light smoothie delivery, she noted, to thunderous applause. Backstage, Admiral Sarah Chun reviewed reports. Diplomacy metrics were up. Conflicts were down. And most disturbingly, Confederation productivity had doubled since implementing mandatory hammock breaks. She shook her head and smiled. They didn't just surrender their military systems, they surrendered to comfort. At the Galactic Innovation Expo, cultural exchange booths were packed. The Zixari Collective demonstrated meditation pods shaped like jelly beans. The Trelk Hive sold weighted blankets made from recycled cloaking devices. The Terrans, they ran a booth called Work-Life Symbiosis, How to Schedule Existential Crises Around Brunch. A multi-tentacled diplomat sniffled gently beside a diffuser. I never knew I needed eucalyptus, they whispered. In the evening, Ralvox and Threxen walked the Grand Promenade, flanked by glowing lanterns and soft lo-fi beats. I once feared Terran culture would dissolve our identity, Ralvox said. And now, he looked up. Now I own 4 houseplants and a gratitude journal. Threxen nodded solemnly. Same. They passed a noodle cart offering stir-fried serenity and sighed in satisfaction. That night, a new transmission lit the galactic grid. Wellness protocols have been deployed. Resistance is futile. Deep tissue therapy is inevitable. No one fought it, because for the first time in eons, empires were learning what it meant to simply feel okay. Somewhere deep within what used to be the most secure Confederation war bunker, now relabeled the United Galactic Collaboration Hub, an alien janitor accidentally knocked over a lava lamp labeled Property of Sarah Chun. The glow shimmered in sync with the ambient jazz funk. Above it, a plaque read, Welcome to the office that conquered the stars. And indeed it had. High strategist Threxen stood in the hallway wearing a business-casual tunic, holding a complimentary iced mocha. His badge read, Chief Strategy Officer, Cross-Species Empowerment Division. Beside him, Commander Ralvox was writing affirmations on a whiteboard that read, Weekly goals. 1. Feel things. 2. Understand Mondays. 3. Sign 3 new peace accords. Have we become HR? Threxen asked quietly. Ralvox considered. I think we've become better. The entire bunker had been converted. War rooms became podcast studios. Drone control hubs became ergonomic call centers. The old orbital assault readiness deck now hosted stand-up comedy night every Friday. Admission included 2 drink coupons and a stress ball. Admiral Chun walked by, tablet in hand, wearing Crocs that said, Let's roll diplomatically. How's the mood today, team? She asked. Threxen blinked. We just de-escalated an interstellar boundary dispute with poetry and beanbag chairs. Chun gave a thumbs up. Nice. In the Collaboration Hub's main lounge, the alien dignitaries once known for their cruelty now debated which vibe playlists best suited peace negotiations. I find synthwave pairs well with interplanetary tariffs, muttered a Krork warlord. A nearby jellyfish diplomat nodded. Lo-fi works better when adjusting ceasefire clauses. Overhead, a hologram rotated slowly. Galactic productivity plus 400% since implementation of mutual vibe protocols. Meanwhile, In the kitchen of compromise, a half-dozen engineers, human and alien alike, sip kombucha while building a coffee-powered deep space reconciliation engine. "It brews peace at sublight," said the intern proudly. Back in his new private office, Threxon sat at his meditation desk, bathed in bioluminescent light. He pulled up a weekly memo. Subject: Unified Galactic Office Culture, Updates. New nap pod installations complete. Emotional ventilation chambers fully operational. Cake rotation schedule now includes gluten-free options. A handwritten sticky note from Admiral Chin read, "Reminder, you're not just part of the Empire. You're part of the vibe." Threxon smiled, then added it to his vision board under personal growth. That afternoon, they hosted a team-building seminar titled, "How to Navigate Galactic Politics Without Screaming Too Loudly." The workshop ended with a trust fall between Ralvox and a creature composed entirely of plasma and compliments. It was beautiful. Somewhere between the restructured Planetary Defense Network and the Interstellar Legal Arbitration Dome, a brunch happened. Not just any brunch. The first official United Galactic Brunch Summit, hosted under the soft lavender light of Alpha Centauri's secondary sunrise, with the faint sound of jazz hop and the clink of mimosa glasses setting the tone for what history would later record as the most delicious treaty signing ever conducted. High strategist Threxon stood by the pancake station, visibly rattled. Is that syrup being applied with military precision? Commander Ralvox, dressed in a soft pastel blazer and wearing sunglasses labeled Emotional Clarity Mode, nodded solemnly. Yes, the humans say it's part of their soft power doctrine. Threxon watched as Admiral Sarah Chun poured maple syrup over a pile of cosmic waffles while dictating peace terms to 3 representatives from warring spiral arms. Clause 47B. All interstellar embargoes shall be replaced with potluck diplomacy, she said, placing a strawberry on top. And yes, dessert counts as a primary diplomatic vehicle. At Table 12, a gaseous delegate from the Trivan Cloud Alliance attempted to understand Earth's Benedict eggs. "They appear structurally unstable," the entity mused. A Terran pastry chef whispered reverently, "That's the beauty of them." Nearby, a crystalline dignitary bit into a blueberry muffin and began weeping. "I can taste my birth cycle." Rodriguez stood beneath a holographic banner that read, "Brunch, because conflict is exhausting and croissants are cheaper." She raised her mimosa, to peace through carbs. The crowd toasted with pancakes, eggs, plasma-baked buns, and something called nebula jam. Underneath a canopy of levitating teacups and mood-reactive tablecloths, Earth's delegation unveiled their new initiative, Galactic Culinary Exchange Directive, Operation Feed the Void. The Krorks would supply war bread. The Terrans offered gluten-free Serenity scones. The Hexari pledged to infuse every diplomatic document with frosting from now on. The response from the galactic audience was overwhelming applause, followed by a coordinated dessert frenzy. Later, Threxon leaned back in his chair, a sticky bun the size of his head slowly melting in his claws. "You know," he said to no one in particular, "if they just opened with brunch, we would have surrendered much faster." Ralvox nodded, dunking a moonberry cronut into his coffee. They knew. They always knew. Back on the observation deck, Chin adjusted her sunglasses. "Well," she said, "we've solved war with waffles. Let's see what we can do with bureaucracy." She raised a toast as her flagship UTV Yorkhammer rotated in orbit above, now emblazoned with a mural of dancing toast and the slogan, "Galactic Peace, serve sunny side up." The stars had barely begun to blink across the dawn-washed dome of the Galactic Assembly when history was buttered, toasted, and signed into existence. The Treaty of Toast and Transcendence, official, binding, and delicately laminated in maple glaze, was ratified with a synchronized clink of coffee mugs. Admiral Sarachan, draped in a shimmering jacket covered in peace-symbolized pastry icons, stood before the gathered delegates. "This," she said, holding up a waffle shaped like a planetary map, "is what victory tastes like." Inside the orbital accord chamber, once reserved for declarations of war, alien delegates now sat on beanbag thrones sipping Harmony Blend espresso. High Strategist Threxon was no longer High Strategist. He was now Planetary Cultural Attaché for Wellness and Waffles. Commander Ralvox had transitioned to, now titled Ambassador of Strategic Brunchcraft and Light Snacks. "Remember when we feared humans?" Ralvox muttered. "I remember fearing brunch," Threxon replied, watching a chocolate croissant levitate via synchronized gravity plating. "Now I crave it." The treaty was unconventional. Clause 1. Disputes shall be settled through karaoke diplomacy. Clause 2. All interstellar travel shall include snack breaks and cozy lighting. Clause 3. Every planetary defense grid must support diplomatic dance mode. Clause 4. The UTV Yorkhammer is to be rebranded as a cruise and negotiation vessel with attached bakery. As the final delegate signed the treaty with a stylus shaped like a cinnamon stick, Admiral Chin addressed the crowd. "We didn't just end war," she said. "We made peace addictive." Cheers erupted. Confetti burst. Somewhere, a sentient disco ball activated in joyful defiance of gravity. Later, atop the observation deck, Chun stood with Threxon and Ralvox. Below them, the galaxy glowed. Peace blossomed in impossible constellations. "I thought surrender was humiliation," Threxon murmured. Chun handed him a warm mug. "Turns out it's relaxing." Ralvox raised his drink. "To toast." Chun smiled. "And to transcendence." They sipped. The stars shimmered. And somewhere in the cosmic chorus of clinking cups and caffeinated laughter, a new age began. One held together by memes, muffins, and mildly weaponized brunch.